The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
Welcome in, everybody, and Merry Christmas. We're just a couple of days away from the annual celebration depicting the birth and later life of Jesus Christ in all Christian faiths. And it's always been a day that has enormous magnitude for me. I'm going to talk more about that as we get into things. I don't want to spend a lot of time today on political jargon. 3 days outside of Christmas, I think there are times when it's appropriate to talk about a lot of different things that are happening, but I don't really feel like this is one of those times. But I do want to touch on a couple of things to give you a little bit of holiday perspective and maybe some New Year's style resolution a little in advance, because I'm struck right now with the whole new tour that Trump is undertaking to talk about his economic achievements, his first year in office, of all of the situations that are happening that are really shaping up to be extremely promising for 2026. And if you haven't ever tuned into the Need to Know program, a lot of Trump style, I'm not down with it. I mean, Trump is as arrogant as the day is long. That's a given. But I have enough experience in life and enough different situations I've been in where I find that a lot of times the most effective leaders, the people who are the most dynamic, who get the most done, have this kind of personality. You don't see many laid back, kind of cautious, individuals who don't have just tremendous belief in themselves and their own abilities really achieving, whether it's on in boardrooms or political structures or athletic fields. You just have to have the belief in yourself and your abilities to be tremendously effective. And again, some of the best people, the most successful people, the most influential people that I have worked with are people that have that kind of personality. I can't remember hardly any of them who, okay, well, let's be cautious. Let's really think about this. It's damn the torpedoes. It goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War. Actually, that was a Civil War comment by Commander Beauregard trying to come up the Mississippi, and the Confederates were and the word torpedo in this complete. I'm struggling for words here. In this description is kind of ridiculous because torpedoes aren't what we think of torpedoes now. Torpedoes back then were not fired from a submarine or from a ship. Torpedoes back in those days were like explosives in barrels on a rope. And as the ship came up the channel, they would somehow work that thing out there, and if it touched the boat it could ignite. So that was the torpedoes of the day. So it's funny that slogan continues to live on, that when you're really determined to get something done and achieve your objectives, you need to be like the commander and say, damn the torpedoes. And that's what effective leadership does, because no matter how much is on the line in terms of criticism and critique and even hysteria, a lot of times, you have to say for Donald Trump, he makes a decision, he gathers the information, he trusts his gut, he trusts his experience, and he has had the most remarkable first year in the White House. And again, I don't want to get information that I'm a Trump lover or something ridiculous like that. I am not an ideological person typically. I am an just absolutely dedicated American. I want what's best for Americans and this country. You know, sure, I'm sympathetic to the rest of the world, but it's not our responsibility to carry the rest of the world. We have developed an obligation to be the strong force in the world to continue to ensure stability. But there's a difference between that and this leftist policy of, you know, basically, and this is a subject for another day, but about 90% of our problems in this country have been government organized initiatives to try to bring people into this country who have no interest in being Americans. Most of these people come here hoping to get a handout and hoping to live in a society where they can basically benefit it from it. And you've got all kinds of stories in the media. We've touched on them in the last couple of weeks about all these special interest groups really tapping into needed resources that are designed to take care of Americans and scam them out of billions of dollars. So that's a subject for another day. But the point is, I'm not politically motivated here. I'm not speaking in terms of ideology, but I'm just telling you that the moves that were made after the disastrous third term of Barack Obama, and that's what 2020 to 2024 was. He was the wizard behind the curtain, pulling the levers. All of his people from his previous administrations, interrupted by 4 years of Trump, were back in the lineup in the Biden administration using the same ridiculous leftist apologetic America's evil policy. And we would need to make it up to the rest of the world. The same clown show that was in place during his administration that was effectively putting all the pieces in for this giant transition in our government that was going to take place. We were going to pivot away from our way of life and what our founders came up with for the concept of this country, which is still an audacious experiment even after 250 years. It's still year to year, period to period, election to election. And we were at a critical point where it all was in danger of falling apart with this leftist movement that infected us for a number of years. Going all the way back to the Clinton administration, after the Bushes, it was really threatening everything because uh, after the first George Bush, I should say. Clinton made this pivot when his leftist policies in his first term were disastrous. He went more to the middle because he was a political animal. We didn't have that in the next Democrat administrations of Obama and certainly Joe Biden, who Joe Biden did not make any decisions, was not competent enough to be the running a three-person insurance company, let alone the most powerful country in the free world. So the bottom line is these people were ideologues. These people were crusaders trying to transition America into this global community leftist collective society that has failed miserably in every other circumstance where it's ever been tried. So with all that being said, getting a businessman into the White House in 2016 was huge. It stabilized things. Then we had the trauma of COVID, which was not an accident. It was a brilliant shot from the groups that were just absolutely apoplectic that Trump was going to tear down everything in terms of infrastructure that Obama had put in place. And he was getting ready to do that with his second term if he'd have won in 2020. The assault was going to be on government workers and these lifetime exemptions they have where they can not even show up for work or accomplish anything. They're still untouchable. And there's been a lot of moves made in this current administration to kind of take that away. So, with all that being said, Trump being out now, stumping in a couple of speeches in the last week, talking about all of the things that have been accomplished in this first 10 or 11 months is pretty extraordinary, because if people, this would not be necessary if people would listen to the right voices and think for themselves and not be manipulated by ideological, politically motivated mainstream media types. And what I said in terms of maybe a little early New Year's resolution, I'd like everybody listening to this to think about these words. Think for yourself, reason for yourself, read, research for yourself. I know there's a lot of controversy about ChatGPT and Grok and whatever the other AI things that are out there. But let me just tell you what a resource these things are. When you are approaching a subject, instead of endless digging and reading and Googling and trying to find things, and the frustration I have is when I find an article that looks like it might be something pertinent to what I want to research, it stays up for about 15 seconds, and then this solicitation pops up. Subscribe to this site, or if you want a New York Times, subscription, fill out this form. To hell with that. I don't have. That's why I don't even like doing a lot of research, because it's so problematic to even find resources for it. But let me tell you, ChatGPT, I assume Grok, which I haven't used, which is more the Elon Musk service. But if you go on there and you ask a question, you will get a thorough answer. And if you want to probe more, you can ask follow-up questions. It is the most amazing resource. It saves me so much time, and you have to take it also with a grain of salt, because any artificial intelligence is programmed by someone. But for the most part, this gathers information from all of the sources that flood the internet and give you, I'm not going to say balanced, because again, you have to have kind of be checked a little bit into just believing at face value, but they don't try to spew a lot of facts. And in my experience so far, don't really try and influence your decision making. So I think it's a wonderful thing to try if you have not employed it yet. It saves a lot of time, and I find it to be just a tremendous resource to research things that you want to talk about or you want to know more about. So think for yourself, because if any of you ever listen again to a so-called, and I'm going to use the stupid thing with my fingers, expert telling you, the end is near, go back, amuse yourself a little bit. Go back and look at some of the clips of all of these idiots on the left side of the ledger, all of these network news people, all of their expert analysts. I love the shows on MSNBC and CNN where they bring panelists in, and these guys bust a blood vessel in their forehead when they start talking back at the first of the year, when Trump put in the tariffs. This is going to be the end of us economically. This is going to lead to the biggest collapse in American history. This is going to drive inflation through the roof. Prices are going to go up so high. It's going to be an absolute disaster. We're going to have recession. Some of them were predicting full out depression. And what it's so ridiculous. I'm not an economist, but I have some common sense. And common sense tells me when we're paying 300 and something billion to the rest of the world to take our products, which is just obscene, and we're only collecting 50 billion from everybody else in the world who is flooding our country with products, that is just effing crazy. I won't use the real word, but it's effing crazy. It's nuts. You can't have a trade deficit that high. It's the arrogance of our country from previous leaders that again are kowtowing to all these other places in the world, because I mean, Trump's right. America has allowed itself to get screwed for decades. You can't have that kind of imbalance. It's obscene. But everybody, all these experts, all of these ideologues, and again, nobody's an expert anymore. Nobody comments on the common sense of a situation. They're commenting on their own political persuasion and their beliefs. They're trying to sway you to make you think like they think that we need this leftist collective approach, which is not America, and it doesn't work. It Socialism or anything related to government being in charge of all means of production and all opportunities and liberties for its citizens does not work, and it will never work in this country because there's the same people that came out and voted for Trump in 2024 are never, ever, and I'm in this crew, going to accept any kind of leftist or socialist system. It doesn't work. It's not practical. It depends on people that are productive, carrying all the people who don't want to do anything. And that doesn't work. Government can't decide what's best for its citizens. That's what America is built on: Judeo-Christian principles, absolute individual liberty and freedom, and decision making to have free speech, free expression of thought, all of the things that the amendments guaranteed us in the original Constitution. So again, the message here is when you hear these droll experts talking like they know what they're referring to and that they have all of this expertise, how can you ever listen to any of these idiots ever again who are predicting this terrible decline? At the height of the Biden slash Obama 3 administration, we reached levels of inflation, runaway prices that were historically high, over 9% inflation, because they kept passing these multi-billion-dollar packages, allegedly the Deficit Reduction Act, the, the most hilarious name for any program of all time, because it did exactly the opposite. We basically printed up $1 trillion to allegedly distribute for infrastructure, and I don't know all the excuses, but really all it did was it was distribute them amongst people that were influential corporately and in terms of their position. It was just a mass pass out of money to try and buy votes for Democrat candidates in upcoming elections. It was not used to improve your lives. It led to runaway inflation on everything, including energy, which if energy prices are inflated, then everything automatically gets inflated. It was a terrible mess. It was an absolute abomination. And for Trump to come in and fix the economic disparity of our country in terms of our trade was a brilliant strategy. And it makes sense. If you start collecting as much as you're paying for the uh, exchange of goods, that's going to create billions and billions of dollars in revenue. And people said, "Well, they're not going to pay those tariffs. They're not going to ship products to the United States, and then there's going to be a terrible shortage, and everything's going to be so much more expensive." But the common sense answer to that question, and if you go back and listen to my shows from March and April when all this was going on, the common sense was these countries have no choice. They have to pay the tariffs. They know they've been getting away with murder for years of having to pay next to nothing to ship goods here. And they are totally reliant on the biggest consumer nation, the richest nation on the planet, who has the money to spend. They are totally reliant on America. There is no way that the predictions were going to come true, that people weren't going to send goods and products here anymore because of the fact that the tariffs were being increased dramatically. And Trump used the tariffs brilliantly as negotiating tools for all kinds of problems we had internationally. He solved long-time conflicts and wars by threatening both sides. If you guys don't get your shit together and stop killing each other, I'm going to raise your price to ship your whatever they're producing that's sold here in America, uh, to 100% or more. And it's amazing the leverage that he had because he knew these people have to have America to survive. That's just the bottom line. The economists and the experts who are not experts on anything other than being political fools. Uh, if you ever listen to any of these people ever again, shame on you, because you have to keep it in your head that we don't live in the Cronkite and Huntley Brinkley and other information, Edward R. Murrow, John Cameron Swayze, whatever historical news guys you want to cite. We don't live in that time anymore. We live in a time where it's people's political motivations and most of all their ideological inclination. So many people in media now are Ivy League educated, and these people, the most blue bloods, people that in our society, coming from these generationally rich families, have raised a bunch of lazy slobs that do not have any incentive. They think they're smarter, they think they're entitled, and they have this attitude where what a middle America thinks, or they call between the East Coast and the West Coast, they call it the flyover. All the 35 states that you travel over by air is the flyover. They don't give a happy damn about anybody in those places, particularly in states that are red oriented, that don't buy their crap that these elitists know best, and government is the answer to everything. So don't listen to these people anymore. Use your own common sense. The other thing that Trump's policies have led to is that major companies don't want to pay the tariffs. So guess what? They're building plants as we speak. They're going to revive so many cities in this country whose jobs left under the leftists because they put in so many regulations and so much taxation that these companies couldn't do business here. They had to go to Mexico or the Central America or the Far East, to Indonesia and China and other places over there to get the cheap labor to produce their products so they could stay in business. It wasn't anti-American, it was economic survival. But now even those companies are coming back because if their products are made overseas, they're not going to pay the tariffs. It's going to be a more economic deal for them to come back. And the big companies, like all the Japanese car makers and all these companies all over the world that make all these products, are building major manufacturing sites in America because it's going to be cheaper for them to do business here. And you know what that means? The infusion, Trump already has commitments for $18 trillion. There's never been anything like this in the history of the world. When you get these manufacturing plants up and running again, you're going to employ tens of thousands of Americans. You're going to revive small towns all through the Rust Belt, all the way out west. You're going to see big shifts in places that have people like Gavin Newsom and idiots in New York like the new socialist mayor. You're going to see mass exoduses from those places. They're going to go where the jobs is. They're going to where the jobs are. They're going to go where the jobs and the individual liberties and the American dream is still possible. And that is what the big result of year one of this administration is. Make America great. I dropped the again because that gives people the idea that America is going to return to some status that we've always worked toward achieving. We just need to make America great. Not so much again, just make the current version of America great. And that means opportunity for everybody. And I don't care what your race is. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what you believed before, what your generation and your family believed. Get over the Democrat Republican crap because that's not pertinent anymore. It comes down to, are you an American and believe in what America offers, the American dream, or are you a globalist, leftist, collective moron who thinks that big government being in control of everything is the way to go? Prices, yes, they're still high, but we've talked about that before. Once a company puts goods and services at a certain threshold, those prices are going to stay at that level. They have no incentive, once people have proven they're going to buy those products at that price, to lower them, but they're going to have no choice because all of this investment, all of this manufacturing is going to spawn the great equalizer in our economy, and that is competition. And when competitors come and say, you know what, we can make a lot of money if we charge, a third of what these, or two-thirds of what these other people are charging, that's when you see it all balance out. That's where free enterprise and a free market excels. And we have the best system in the world. And you got to get back to believing in that. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's happening rapidly now. 2026, I'm telling you, from an economic standpoint, is going to be one of the great years in American history. So that's the lecture politically today. Let's talk about Christmas real quick. I understand that the traditional nuclear family is something of a scarcity these days. There are still, of course, some great generational families, and I envy them if things have stayed pretty much the same when I was a kid. Christmas was such an amazing experience. I have so many fantastic memories of so many of my relatives. Friends would come by. My Christmases in my younger years were always at my grandmother's. I've talked about it before, right on the Chesapeake Bay in Annapolis, Maryland. The most amazing adventure paradise for a kid. I have such wonderful memories, but the Christmas memories, it was always such an event. It was always organized. It was never chaotic. There was never any kind of break in the pattern. The adults would get up early, and this is not a great testament to my family, but you would hear the blender going in the kitchen about 8 o'clock in the morning. They were already mixing up whiskey sours to start the day, and preparing breakfast foods. It usually was just biscuits and meats and eggs and things like that. But once that was dispensed with, the festivities didn't start at our Christmases, which were usually set up down in the finished basement, which was this usually my stronghold place where I hung out most of the time when I was at my grandmother's. But it was giant open space, and walking down those stairs and seeing all of the gifts and the decorations, and it's just magical memories for me that I'll never forget it. And I know that still exists, but it's just not on the scale that it used to be. And maybe it's just the fact that living all these years and experiencing all these different phases of life, it's disturbing to me now. I'm not even going to be with both of my sons on this Christmas, maybe only for the second or third time ever. My youngest son has lots going on here in his life. He's got obligations with his almost certainly to be in the near future wife's family, that he is not coming out to Las Vegas to my other son's house, where we will be celebrating some semblance of Christmas, not in the event kind of organized way that I like, because of course my daughter-in-law's parents are involved and their family, and it's just not a collective thing like it used to be. They get their time, we get our time. We kind of, I mean, they stay the my daughter-in-law's family stays at the house, so we are relegated to a hotel, and we're just kind of on standby until we get the call to come on over. It's just not quite the same, and that's my own personal lament in this holiday season. But I have a couple of grandchildren now, and I understand that my time is limited at this stage of life. I'm going to enjoy every Christmas to the ultimate. I thought about not going out there because, again, it's just kind of it's just a lesser scale celebration that I would like. But then again, I know I would be absolutely miserable here. So I'm going to make the trip for just a couple of days. I'm looking forward to it. But I guess my greatest wish for Christmas for everybody is for your families to experience something close to what I was just unbelievably. And every year I'm alive, I'm more grateful and feel more privileged that I had the complete idyllic kind of Christmas atmosphere, the big meal at in the late afternoon after all the Christmas festivities downstairs. Everybody watched everybody else open their things. It wasn't this mass run and grab everything and rip everything open and it's over in 10 minutes. It was very, very measured and organized, and I have such great memories of it. I did a good job in my time with my sons, and I married the ideal person who's the queen of Christmas, my ex-wife Kathy. We should still be married, but that's another story for another day. But the bottom line is she made everything special. We carried those traditions on. Our guys experienced that, and that's one of the great gratifications I have in Christmas, that we were able to deliver it. And I hope your family has something resembling what I described, because there's no more special day in the course of a calendar than Christmas Day, done correctly, done right, and done with just steeped in traditions. Family traditions are the best. Family is the best. I tell you that the three pillars of our society, and I say it every week, it's God, country, and family, and all three come into play for me on Christmas Day, my favorite day of the year. Thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate all of you. We'll be back next week with the season ending edition. It'll be December 29th, and we will have some thoughts going into 2026. But I'm telling you, buckle up, because it's going to be a year to remember in this country. All kinds of great things are going to happen. You got to stay on board, because it's all in place now. We've taken the corrective action, and now it's time to reap the benefits and harvest the rewards. Thank you, everybody. Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. God bless you. Thank you for listening. I'm Kip Kiefer on Need to Know. Have a very joyous holiday occasion.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.